Hey guys, my name is Dr. Ricky Keys, and in today's video, there are three people, three titans of industry and culture and esteem. I mean, these were absolutely amazing people, but all three of them unfortunately passed. And they all three have one thing in particular that I'd like to share with you in common. And this thing, I believe, should be a testament to what you need to do to make sure that you protect not only yourself, but you protect your family from the unfortunate consequence of death. So obviously death is going to happen to all of us, but these people, these absolute icons, these people who had both assets and had, people around them, lawyers, influential people around them, these people had this one thing in common, and I'd like for you to kind of look at it to make sure that you don't have the unfortunate consequence of experiencing this thing. So check out the video and we'll see, kind of what happened.
Okay, so guys, you saw the thumbnail, you saw what we are really focused on. I wanted to do this recording because I felt that there are three people that you should know, you probably know. The challenge is that each of these people had a major thing that was in common. And unfortunately, it was something that bound them together. Well, there were two things in particular, but obviously they were successful. That's, we can concede that there are a lot of things that they had in common, but the two things in particular that they had in common, and I'll just go ahead and tell you what the secret is. Number one, they were black. Number two, they died, and they died without a will. So obviously the three people of which I speak are Chadwick Boseman, Aretha Franklin, and Prince. All three of these people were cultural icons. They were absolutely amazing in terms of their ability to move people to, Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther, and I think it's called 21 Bridges or something like that. All of them had, fame. Obviously, Aretha Franklin and Prince goes without question. And I think these are individuals that we need to pay attention to, not only because they were cultural icons, but the challenge is that they were wealthy. They had significant amounts of money. They had people around them who could aid them and assist them. But even though they had all of these resources available to them, they unfortunately died without a will. So, and obviously there's something called a probate court that each of these individuals, their family members, had to go through in order to, address their affairs. And that's something that we could talk about a little bit later. But again, I wanted to just show you these three articles. Three articles. Number one, it just, again, talks about the $68 trillion of wealth that's going to be transferred from one generation to the next. Clear example, explanation of that is that there's going to be a generation, there's a baby boomer generation, Generation X, and then there are subsequent generations. The baby boomer generation, a lot of those people will die off, and the wealth that they have accumulated is going to have to go somewhere. Typically, it goes to their family, or it goes to a charity, or it goes to some other source. And the challenge, just generally speaking, is that amid this crisis, amid the issues of COVID and obviously the pandemic and economic challenges and lack of planning, a large percentage of that wealth will not go to its intended purpose, meaning that it won't go from the parents to the children or to the charity of their wish. It'll go to the government, or it go to some other source, potentially nefarious sources. So the challenge that we have as a group is that we need to do everything possible to take care of business, to make sure that the resources that we've accumulated go to the right spot. So again, this is a really quick article. This is one by CNBC. It says that the $68 trillion transfer of wealth in America is evaporating amid the crisis. And it goes on to talk about the drop in self-employed, drop in the number of baby boomers who said that they are self-employed or own their own business. The impact has been significant repercussions for the economy at large. considering that the baby boom owned nearly half of the privately held businesses with employees in the United States. That's 2.34 million businesses with 24.7 million employees, $5.1 trillion in sales, according to the Census Bureau. And again, it just talks about how the pandemic has disproportionately affected this population. And the result is that it's going to have a significant impact on the people that they leave those assets to. So this is just the general challenge. And again, this is a CNBC article, and I would encourage you to read it. I'll provide a link in the bottom of this YouTube video. But the two articles in particular that I think are specifically germane to the African American community are this article by Black Enterprise. And it's a really interesting article because what it says is that, and again, forgive me for all of this crap, they try to spam me, this is wild. But the article reads, Black Americans are losing out on a $68 trillion wealth transfer. Estate planning can change that. And again, it talks about estate planning, but I think the most important thing is that it also includes financial education. So it's not only estate planning, meaning that you develop a will, you develop a background of the kind of issues, the things that you want to do with your resources. You want to make sure that your affairs are in order, number one, but more importantly, you want to make sure that the people that you know, the people that are part of your life, the family members that you have, that these people indeed know where those resources are, know where those assets are. It's not only important to have resources and to stack them away, but the second most important thing is to make sure that people know where they are. So that's a combination of both having the resources, accumulating the resources, but secondarily it's also in making sure that everyone is aware that those resources exist and where they are. So again, Black Americans are losing out on a $68 trillion transfer of wealth. Estate planning can change it. And again, it also goes on to talk about financial education. Black Americans are missing out on a $68 trillion wealth transfer due to a significant lack of estate planning and financial literacy. And it says, an analysis of high ultra net worth markets conducted by a consulting firm shows that by 2047, trillions of dollars will be passed on to younger generations. However, due to the lack of estate planning in Black America, younger Black generations may not see wealth trickling down. So again, this is a major challenge. It's no secret that Black Americans have less to pass down. Now, this is an important point. White families have a median wealth of $187,200, while Black families have a median wealth of only, and I say only, $24,100. Again, a difference of about $164,000, according to the Federal Reserve's 2019 survey of consumer finance. And then it goes on to say, finance experts are now urging Black Americans to do estate planning, the process of designating who gets a person's possessions after they pass away. This includes their cars, real estate investments, and other things. Although many avoid talking about their death, it's inevitable, so planning for it is essential, especially when it comes to keeping money or property in the family. So this is critically important. While Black Enterprise, I believe, did a phenomenal job at just explaining this issue and highlighting the challenge, I think there was another article, and this is the one that I really want to pay attention to. This is by NBC Black. NBC is really diverse, and what they've done is they've basically identified markets, and they have a specific news section that's specifically focused on that section of the population. This one is specifically focused on African Americans, and it does a lot of interesting stuff, including COVID and politics and things of that sort. But this article dated, it was dated actually in February. it says, why some Black Americans might miss out on the $68 trillion of generational wealth. Experts say wills aren't just for the wealthy and urge more Americans, and Black Americans in particular, to plan for life after death. And again, the people that I spoke with you about, Chadwick Boseman and Aretha Franklin and Prince, it says, when actress Chadwick Boseman died, he didn't have a will, neither did recording artists Prince and Aretha Franklin. And again, so let's break down these three people. And again, the challenge that we have is that these people had a significant amount of wealth. They had a significant number of assets. And the issue that we as people who are just basically, the working class, if you will, we have some assets. We don't have as many assets as them. You could just only imagine how significant the challenge was with these people because they had so many assets. But let's look at Chadwick Boseman. When he died, Chadwick Boseman, again, Black Panther, 21 Bridges, a whole bunch of really good movies. He was setting himself up to be an absolute mega superstar. But when he died, he had a net worth of $4 million. Again, in the grand scheme of things, not a whole lot of money, but he was, on his way to becoming extremely wealthy and extremely successful. The Black Panther brand was going to continue to extend. He was going to continue to grow, and he was going to continue to be a box office hit. But when he died, he died with $4 million of net worth. He was married, unlike Prince and Aretha Franklin, to my knowledge. But he was able to leave all of these assets to his wife. And again, I want to make sure I'm not being disrespectful. I just want to use these three people, cultural icons, super duper stars, wealthy people, as examples for why we who don't have a lot still need to take this thing seriously. But again, when he died, he left his wife $4 million. And unfortunately, still today, she had to go to what is called the probate court. And again, this is a court system that basically looks at your assets and makes a decision as to who gets those assets. And it's estimated that between 5 and 8% of all the assets that are available will be used in the probate court. So in essence, a family member will only get between 90 and I'd say 95% of the assets because they have to go through probate court. And again, this is only a more substantive reason why we should, as a people, actually do what's proper, do what's right, do a will, make sure everyone knows that the will exists and where all the resources and assets are, so that there won't be any confusion. Again, so the challenge, as I said, is that, Chadwick Boseman, a phenomenal human being, someone who should be admired. Unfortunately, he died without a will. Again, so Aretha Franklin, cultural icon, absolute superstar, someone who contributed to so many aspects and facets of life. She died, and when she died, she had a net worth of $80 million. And again, because she was not married and she had a number of children, my concern, challenge is that there were large numbers of people who were coming out of the woodwork with the hope of trying to secure some of these assets instead of the assets going directly to the family. If she would have articulated her interest before she died, then there could have been a smooth transition, and the family would have been left not with grief and infighting and things of that sort, but they could have properly memorialized her, even though she had a wonderful funeral. But there would not have been any backbiting, any challenges to that effect. So again, Aretha Franklin, cultural icon, someone who should be looked up to, but unfortunately died without a will. And the last person, in the 70s, 80s and 90s, one of the biggest superstars to ever exist, musical genius, Again, I don't believe, not to my knowledge, that he was married, but he died and he had a net worth of over $200 million. And you can only imagine how much infighting potentially there was for that level of wealth. When he died, there were stories just showing and saying how challenging it was because he had so much money, he had so many assets, how the family was going to properly either dispose of those resources or how they were going to divvy up those assets. But if he had a will, if he had estate planning, he would have been able to make sure that his final wishes were taken into consideration. But as a matter of fact, not only taken into consideration, but what they were adhered to. So again, all three of these cultural icons, African Americans. But to show you that this is not a black issue alone, Robin Williams was another superstar back in the day. Robin Williams had a net worth of $50 million. He had a wife and children. So the challenge was not that that there was some confusion as to where the assets would go. The challenge is and was that he, like Aretha, like Chadwick, and like Prince, died without having a will. And this is, again, a major issue that I believe that our culture, our community, our generation should try to address. So let's get back to this article. And again, these are the three people. And then if you include Robin Williams, just large numbers of people are dying without having a will. So again, this article does the same thing where it talks about over the next 25 years, an estimated $68 trillion will be transferred from U.S. households to heirs and charities, according to an analysis. Without a plan in place, and again, this is what I was telling you, probate costs, without a plan in place, probate costs could be 3 to 8% of the value of the estate. And again, that is a sizable amount of money. If you do the math on that, just say 5%. 5% of $200 million is what? That's 5% is a large number, but it's eluding me right now. If I didn't have to do the math while I'm doing this recording, I'd be able to easily do it. But 1% is 200. No, 1% is $2 million. So if you do 5, that's $10 million or more of assets that could have been used for a charity, for a family member, for any of these things. It's going to the probate court, and it doesn't make any sense for anyone to do that without proper estate planning. And again, these are the two paragraphs that I think you should pay significant, great amount of attention to. It says, and I want to read them: to be sure, Black Americans' median wealth is less than 15% of that of white families in the U.S., according to the Federal Reserve's 2019 survey of consumer finance. White families have a median wealth, again, of $188,200 compared to $24,100 for blacks. Now, again, while this is important, this is the most important paragraph right here. The median black household wealth was forecast to hit 0 by 2053. So while other communities who have plans, who have wills, who have clear lines of demarcation where those resources should go, while those families will increase their wealth over time, the black households, African American families, will have a net worth of 0, a household wealth of 0 by 2053. Now that's bad, but worse than that, the pandemic hit, disproportionately affecting black communities, accelerating that timeline. So the challenge is not that it's going to happen. The challenge now is that it's going to happen even more frequently, even sooner than was expected by 2053. This is a major challenge. This is something that has to be addressed. See, in the author said, we are in a state of emergency now. She said, it is not a 2053 number anymore. It is here. So the issue is not that we have a lack of assets. It's the fact that we don't do the proper thing to guard those assets and make sure that family members get those assets as opposed to someone else. And having a will and clearly laying out where that will is and all the assets are is the first step that you should and could take to make sure that you leave behind memories and find opportunities and things that can be helpful, as opposed to leaving behind heartache and misery and challenges and pain and things that should not be because of your death. It doesn't make any sense. I was also looking at GoFundMe. GoFundMe is now one of the leading sources of assets in terms of how people are burying or memorializing family members. So if I have two leave behinds, number one, don't do a GoFundMe. Get proper insurance. Secondly, make sure that you, well, I'd say three, make sure that you properly insure yourself so that your family does not have the burden of debt and all of these other financial challenges going forward. And we're going to do a number of videos on that, including doing a dime calculator, which is a calculator that says, okay, here I am this age, I am this level of health, I have this number of family members. What must I do to make sure that I have enough insurance so that my family members have the resources they need for a time period that they need to have those resources? And then after doing that, it's trying to determine whether you're underinsured or you're overinsured. Highly unlikely that you're overinsured, but just making sure that you have the proper amount of insurance that you need in order to make sure your family has some level of longevity. The second thing is, once you have done that, gotten the insurance, the second thing is that you should do a will. A will clearly lays out what you want to do, what you want where you'd like for your assets to go. It could be to a charity, a church, it could be to a family member, it could be to several family members, it could be divvied up amongst family members, but it's critically important that you have all of your documents, all of your ducks laid out so that your family members know exactly what to do with the assets that you've accumulated. You may not have a lot, but the assets that you do have, they should go to the right source. They should not just go off into the ether. And the third thing, I think critically important, that you could have a well laid out plan, you could have insurance, you could have a will, you could have all those documents in order, but if no one knows where they are, if no one knows that you have all of these different assets, then it doesn't make any sense, because invariably the courts will come in or some nefarious person will go and they will actually steal those assets. So the first thing is getting insured. The second thing is having a will. And the third thing is having a clear line or, an inventory, if you will, of those assets and letting people know exactly where those assets are. So my name is Dr. Ricky Keys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, 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 we're gonna provide information so that you don't lose your generational wealth, that your family has opportunities to have access to the resources that you have, and that nefarious individuals or the government or anyone like that, they don't have the ability to take those assets. So with that, please like, share, comment on this video. Make sure that you disseminate this information to everyone. We are developing a company, and it's basically in effect, but the website is what we're doing to make sure that all these things are laid out. You can do a will. You'll have the ability to do what I call the TCB plan, which is that plan that I laid out, that third step. You'll have the ability to get insured. We're going to work with insurance companies to make sure that you, number one, have the dime calculator so that you can make sure that you have enough assets to know how much money you need to spend or how much insurance you need to have. So we'll work with insurance companies to do their dime calculator, and then once you've identified how much insurance you need, to actually help you to get the low cost, high efficient, most effective form of insurance that you can. So, and it'll have a number of different other things that you can use to make sure that you protect your assets, that you don't lose out on the $68 trillion or the portion of the $68 trillion of generational wealth that will happen. No doubt about it. So my challenge to you is like, share, and comment on this video. Make sure that the people that you know, the people that you love, have this resource and this information so that they can indeed leave their assets to the people that they want instead of someone else coming in and stealing those assets. Again, my name is Dr. Ricky Keys. Hopefully I'll see you on the next video.